It's your fault for watching. It's your fault for watching.
What kind of home math is being done during arranged marriages? You know what I mean?
Is
Right?
this question for me?
Yes, it is.
Like, were you arranged? Are you arranged?
I mean, so this pisses everybody off when I say it, but fuck it. I include marriage as a doctrine of slavery. It's why I refuse to participate in the contractual agreement. It really doesn't have a whole lot other to do, like taxes are not a great example for me. There's no equivocal math. In slavery times, I imagine women had to look at men with that, like, are you healthy enough to stay alive? Because if you widow me, I'm broke, I no longer own anything, so I guess I have to go be a whore. Or I have to find a new husband who will hopefully now take me and my children. The survival concept for looking for a mate was still relevant during those times, and I imagine a man's worth probably included how many slaves he owned. I'm sure that was a choice for white women of some classes. Arranged marriages by parents, like that's a longer running concept of marriage than what we know now as the practice of marriage. Women themselves have been bought and sold for thousands of years through the passage from their fathers to their husbands, and then in prehistory to their sons even. Their sons became guardians of their estates, and we have made as women equivocal progress in a very short amount of time. And it came back to reproductive right. As soon as women, which this is like 100 fucking years, guys, 100 years. Once women started to be able to control whether they were just married and bred, and they had a choice to choose when they wanted to have children, women's rights actually became an issue, like politically, socially. You look at all of the births of feminism, of equal rights and pay or attempts at it, big social movements. These happened at the same time that different types of birth control became available. So home math has probably been always the way it's been, which is like, please don't let me die in childbirth. And like maybe if I pick one man over another man, I might live longer and my kids might have a better life. Pretty sure that's always been home math.
That is some deep home math right there. Well, think about once again.
That
so
sounds like
to,
that sounds like that. That just sounds like. I mean, I'm trying to understand like how, like what you're describing as far as home math sounds very a lot like slut shaming. But what's underneath that is patriarchy. And I'm trying to understand where you're going with this. Is it the woman's fault?
Is it the term hoe that throws it towards the slut shaming? Because that's not my intention at all.
Yeah, I'm wondering,
for me, it's the transactional guidance that comes in the term of hoe or prostitute, and how that actually is managed more by security than necessary financial transaction. That really, in the end, like hoeing it is a way to survive through selling yourself as a woman and your services.
So maybe the word survival needs to be stuck in there.
So it's a branch of like survival and patriarchy and.
I would argue that, like, I mean, it sounds offensive, but I would just say that, like, women should probably normalize the idea that we all potentially are made hoes by the patriarchy. No matter what side of the fence we think we're sitting on, we're all in the same fucking pasture. Wife, prostitute, mistress. Otherwise, we're all in the same. So my intention is definitely not to slut shame anyone.
Well, how about this? How about this? Expand the topic to men, and say that if you are a man who works in a coal mine, you're hoeing out your lungs. If you're a man playing football, you're hoeing out your knees. You know what I mean? Your spine. Basketball is your knees, right? If you lift in boxes every day at a place, man or woman, you are hoeing out your back. right? And when you do some whole math using your back, you got to think about whether they're going to be walking crooked later in your life. How about that? Does that make sense? So, if the concept of everything is pimps and hoes, right? And then the whole thing is, can you pimp and hoe yourself so you can control your own destiny? Or can
I
you
arguably
choose?
disagree, Travis.
Go ahead.
From someone who's done construction and someone who's been penetrated, there are a lot of similarities, but oh damn, are there some differences?
Preach.
I mean, while these both may be fruit, they are not. This is apples and oranges. I think at the end of the day, I wish I was the type of woman that every time a man said, yeah, like if somebody would pay me $100 to get fucked, I'd take it. And my answer always wants to be to like sling out $100 and be like, well, bend over, right? Other than I can't actually do that. Like I wouldn't be able to stomach myself to do that. But I think someone should maybe. The concept of allowing someone to share in your body being equivocal to using your body as a tool to make other tools work or to function. That's a hard leap for me, and I do hear the comparison a lot.
But,
Okay, so whoever just did that
mind,
caused the echo. But go ahead, Jen, or Carmela, whoever was going to say.
yeah, also keeping in mind that a lot of this was built on what men wanted women to do. Women couldn't vote. Women didn't have agency over their bodies. Women were viewed as cattle, and maybe some of these ideas were just passed down. I just know the way I grew up in the environment that I grew up. I was told by older female family members, hey, don't come home with a with a wet ass and empty pockets. If you're gonna be with somebody who's gonna bring you some value in life. That sort of thing. So I understand that transactional piece, but
Coming up tomorrow on Your Fault for Listening, wet ass and empty pockets.
No, can I give the saying, the actual saying? Can I give the actual saying?
Just do it. Just do it, Tony.
A dry purse and a wet pussy don't match.
Damn.
A dry purse and a wet pussy don't match.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. I'm out.
I think that
I'm muting.
I think that now today we have choices, but that same old way of thinking has been bred into us, ingrained in us. Back when my mother was growing up, what she had to look forward is, I'm going to be a teacher or a homemaker or a secretary or a nurse. Those were the choices. I've spoken with women who had it hard, even trying to get into law school.
My mother told me that my grandmother was mad at her because my grandmother wasn't allowed to go to nursing school and she was.
Yeah, and that's working with the cards that you were dealt. But I don't equate that to being a hoe. I look at that as dealing with the cards that you were dealt within a system of patriarchy that created the system in which women feel like they need to.
Okay, but here, how about this? How about this, Jen? This is my joke about pimps. Okay, I said a pimp to me is anyone trying to get you to do something that benefits them more than you. So that means if you have a job at all, you're a hoe. And if your boss is the owner, that makes your boss your pimp. But if your boss is not the owner, that just makes your boss the bottom bitch. That's the hoe that the pimp trusts more than the other hoes. Sometimes kids pimp parents. With whoever's making the noise, mute themselves. sometimes kids pimp parents. If you're a parent and you do what your kid wants you to do instead of what you should do as a good parent, your kid is pimping you. And if you do it because you don't want to hear the baby cry, that would make a baby's cry a pimp slap. And if a baby's cry is a pimp slap, we're all pimps, and we are. Every child, boy or girl, looks more like the father than the mother. That's nature's way of helping the baby and the mom pimp the father, and it's sticking around. Discovery Channel. So if that's all true, I said, who is the greatest pimp of all time? At first, I thought it was Hugh Hefner, because men paid to see his women, knowing in advance they'd never touch him. But even greater than that would be Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz owns Starbucks, and he's actually convinced people they got to give him $5 on their way to work. Hey, before you see your pimp, you bring me 5. Right? So if you are doing something where you're doing a majority of the work but not getting a big enough piece of the pie, wouldn't that be hoe-ish? By the way, Lydia, I do agree with you with the using the holes versus being used as a hoe or a tool. I agree with that. That is a whole nother level that a guy selling his holes couldn't even begin to understand.
I can appreciate too the generational difference for women, and I can appreciate though that we're still on the same level when we talk about that, like looking for a partner that can provide for you was taught to you. That was a concept that was taught to all of us as women, and no matter how woke of a position that you even grew up in. Like I grew up with gay men through puberty, you know, but I was still told time and time again, like the main goal was to like grow up and find a nice boy who's going to take care of you. That's a common ideal, but it's still based on this idea that like women have to find a resource outside themselves to feed themselves and to make money. And granted, the choices are limited, but there still are so many choices now for women. There's so many other ways of empowerment, I feel like now. And maybe
Other
this is just a white lady thing. I'm going to admit
right?
that.
No, think about it. What you're
I feel like
saying
there's
is
other choices now.
That mindset,
of like how to find what you want in life.
That mindset, what you're talking about is he the one? Okay, that could be a whole nother episode on a Science Monday. Is he the one? Let's do some science on that, right? And then you can just basically go off, why are you looking for the one? Be the one. Is that what you're saying without even act like
I mean, I'm just saying be self-financed. Like, make your own money. Like, as soon as that opportunity avails itself, rather than trusting someone else to provide for you. And there's so many deep, complex social issues that affect that ability. And I get that too. But a lot of times I'm sitting around in a room full of fucking white privileged women that are still making the choices to like search out men for, you know, like they're thinking $75,000 a year is fucking like good times. And they would be offended by the term hoe too, because they don't, I would say, want to associate that survival through relationship or through transaction is a wide spectrum. I think that's what I would try to explain.
So are you saying then that the people who call people who sell their hoes, that basically you're just saying expand the definition of hoe, because yeah, and that's how I was trying to do. I was saying that look, if you're doing something you don't want to do to get paid, then that would be and you really don't want to do it, right? It ain't the same exact thing, right? But it's whole like, you know what I mean? Especially when you add in like the but it is a whole nother level, and I think it would be even a worse situation to be stuck, right, in a situation of being a hoe where you never have your own money, right? Like the extreme version of, you know, we're gonna do whole math part 2, because I want to, because you got to. It's the mindset of the pimps that.
I'm open to a renaming on this topic. By the way, we can rename this. It's just home math came easy.
How about whole survival math or something like that? Is that what's needed? What would you change it to?
I think it's the term hoe that's offensive.
No. Jim's not offensive. She's just a strong enough willed mind woman that, like you, that and Carmel. That's why y'all are even on the show. That's why y'all are part of the show. That's why I am thankful for the mind time, because we're just talking it out. And what I'm saying is, the way she challenged you was just that word. It seemed like that, but then once you explained one part of it, and then she went on with the wet, the wet ass and the dry purse, or I forgot how y'all said it off the top, but
dry purse and wet ass.
Yes,
dry
exactly.
Purse. Wet purse.
Wet ass. Dry purse.
Wet
Exactly.
Wet ass and empty pockets.
That was perfect, Tony. Damn. Okay, and so when you say it like that, okay, so I've heard stories about how some actor or not had to. Here, I'll just say it like the person said it themselves. So on the Richard Pryor roast of the Richard Pryor show, right? On the dais, it had like Robin Williams, Marsha Warfield, Sandra Bernhardt, John Witherspoon, who was the father, like in House Party and on the Boondocks. Richard Pryor says to Paul Mooney, "What's the name of that director that we went up and fucked, and I got 2 movie roles?" And when he said that, what was so cold about it was, he was telling the truth, right? And so later on, Ronaldo Ray was telling the same story about how he went over to some director's house and how the director wanted to do stuff with him, and he didn't want to do it. So, but the director lived in Hollywood Hills, where he had to climb up, a long hill after you park way down at the bottom. And as he's walking down the hill, Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney were going up the hill. And then he said to Richard Pryor later on what happened up there. He said, "We went up there and fucked that guy, and I got 2 movie roles." And so when I first heard that, I'm serious, about Hollywood, my first thought was, ain't nobody in Hollywood not on the casting couch except Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Because he would have been, in my mind, the only person with enough talent they couldn't deny him. And in the documentary about Motown, Berry Gordy said that all he knew when Stevie joined Motown was he could play that harmonica, right? So there you go. So anyway, but some star or somebody with some talent.
Shut up, dude.
Mute yourself, Tony.
Murphy. Oh,
Tony,
sorry.
mute yourself.
Yeah, I am.
So so I understand what you said when you said that about how it's different for a woman, where if she's stuck in a marriage where she's stuck with bad home math, that is a far greater having thought it through equation, right? Of longevity and horror and depending on what religion you're stuck in, he's thinking he can do a whole bunch of shit to you that nobody should be thinking they can do to anybody. And I think people
question the women who stay in those situations, not the monsters that help put them there and keep them there.